Assalamu alaikum, namaskar to all the listeners. This is Attorney Shafir Ali. After a long time we are live today. Today is April 23rd, 2020, and of course we are in full blown shelter and confinement, and I really know how hard it is. My last show, I think, was 5 weeks ago, my last live show, Michael. I hope you can hear me properly, Michael. If there is anything, please let me know. And we are live today, and anything I'm going to tell you today is my opinion. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions. I'll have Attorney Sharif join me in a few minutes, but today we are going to talk, of course, about this 60 days restriction or suspension of the immigration, as President Trump called it. And before that, I hope everybody is safe. Last time I spoke to you, I was talking about this is going to affect us a lot, and unfortunately it seems it did, and since then we have had almost 45,000 deaths and so many people infected. So my heart goes to all the people and the families, and a lot of things are happening. The world is really kind of turning at a turning point, so things are going to be difficult, and we are hoping that we will be able to help those we can help. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem the president is helping. He's making things harder for whatever reason, but he's making it harder. Unfortunately, again, as I said, it's before, we are talking about many governments now are kind of using this COVID-19 to actually crack down on their people, hurting them, and actually doing more harm than helping them and pretending to be doing good. That's the part that bothers me. And we've seen it, and if you look at how things are going. But again, this is my opinion. So let me now go back to the suspension. Who does it affect? Well, at this point, they say the non-immigrant visas, which are the visas that usually we handle, are not going to be affected. But in 30 days, they're going to review that. Non-immigrant visas are what we are talking about, or H-1Bs, etc., etc. And if you have a valid visa on your passport, those will not be affected too. It's not getting cancelled. However, those who are going to apply, of course, anyways, it's already blocked. I don't know why they're blocking it again, but it's already, no flights are coming in. So how will people, well, the few flights coming in is different, but many people cannot come in. So actually, especially people from India and other countries in the surrounding. Now, there are exceptions to those, but they're blocking pretty much a lot of things. Not a lot that we expected, luckily, but a lot of being blocked. For example, it seems like, although they're saying family petitions will continue, it's mostly for U.S. citizen spouses. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, then you will be able to get in. And also, if you are in the United States Armed Forces, your children will be able to get it. And also for permanent residents, of course, you will be able to get in. But the good exception is that, and this is where we're going to have Attorney Sharif talk a little bit about that, is that people who are of national interest, like physicians, nurses, healthcare professionals, people in research, and people who work in a field, they will be able to apply for the green card. And this applies for both entering and also I-485. So now it is a tricky part. It's only for 60 days, and I think they they will try their best to keep this, because this was on their agenda. But of course, people for asylum, refugees, etc., they will be able to still fight for that. And to be honest, again, this thing is not very, very clear. It doesn't really have a head or a tail. It's just out there throwing it. We will have to see how USCIS deals with that when they will give clear directives how it will work. So pretty much we took from the original, and we're telling you about this. So it is very, very, of course, it's heartbreaking, because we already have people who are stuck in the U.S. and who could get something now. They might not be able to get it. But at the same time, the good news is that we still have all those provisions where you can extend, and so it is a situation where we are not seeing any kind of good things coming now. We have not seen good things coming for a long time. But now, of course, it's worse. So we will be opening the lines a little bit. 510-657-1170, 510-657-1170 will be live. And I don't know, Michael, if you could get Sharif online. He wanted to talk a little bit about the second part about the exceptions, which are the immigrant. Well, we're talking here of green cards, by the way. Non-immigrant visas like H-1Bs or visas are still okay, but we are talking about the green card. But in those parts, there is an exception for physicians, nurses, healthcare workers, people in medical research, people of national interest. So those people will still be able to keep they will be able to apply for their green card, which is really good. And as you know, we do a lot of those cases, especially people in the medical field, people related to any research, not any research, but research, medical research and things like that. So this is a time to take advantage of that program. I apologize. This is a time to take advantage of this program and tell and check if it is you fit in that. For example, trust waiver or an EB1. Is Sharif there? Hi. Hello.
Yes. Hi, Shah. How are you?
I'm doing well, Sharif. Can you speak a little bit louder, because I can hear you a little bit far? Hi, Sharif.
Okay.
How are you? I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, we're doing great. I hope everybody out there is safe and you're doing well, and staying safe as well. Obviously.
And I forgot to say Ramadan Mubarak to all. With all the things going on, it's Ramadan coming. It's going to be a unique Ramadan for all of us, but it is going to be very, very unique. So, Ramadan Mubarak to you and your family.
Thank you. Likewise to you as well.
Yes. Go ahead, Sharif. Tell us a little bit what's going on and give us an update, and what do you think about the 60 days restrictions?
Sure. First of all, I think I want to let folks out there understand and know that, as immigration attorneys, we're definitely, frontline workers with the COVID-19, because the USCIS still requires many of the petitions to be sent paper, and that requires obviously printing and shipping and labeling and delivering, and so we're still having to interact and whatnot, and we're keeping as safe as we can, but obviously nobody forces us into this business. We're here to do work, and when people's lives depend on it, they can always definitely know that we're not going to shy away, and we're going to, fight the fight on their behalf, regardless of what the risks are, because ultimately, it is our duty, just like those nurses and, doctors are doing their duty, we have to do our duty, because many of our client situations are also life and death situation as well. With regard to the 60 days executive order, the first thing everyone needs to understand is this does not apply to anyone that is physically present in the United States. This president is famous for bluster and kind of overstating things, and unfortunately, the reason why he's able to get away with it is we have a very ignorant media in the U.S., and the presidential authority actually does not extend to overturning laws that have been passed by Congress. So, for example, an adjudication of a petition within the U.S. cannot be something that is overturned through executive order. That is a law that people can, take advantage of.
That's a very interesting part. I didn't mention that. I was so irritated by all this, but yeah, it's true. Executive orders cannot overturn existing law. It's just like overshadowing everything. But of course,
exactly. But what it can do, I think what you're right about is that it can impact people who are outside the U.S. with respect to entry, because the entry it does have a lot of power with the executive. And if he can deem that, for example, it's either a health-related or safety-related situation, then the entry can be restricted quite heavily. And we've seen that with the Muslim ban. We've seen that with various other travel bans. And this is something that, is going to be a restriction. But I would argue that this is more political than practical, because obviously nobody's really planning on traveling in the next, month or so, given the circumstances, particularly in the U.S., where the coronavirus pandemic is probably worse than any other country. The current statistics that just came out of New York say that, the antibody testing revealed that 14% of New York City residents have been infected with coronavirus. So you see that there's a massive disaster in the United States. And so I don't know how badly or eager people are to enter. I think that probably, they want to wait for more practical times. And what the president is doing with the political season is kind of understanding that people are not really going to enter anyway, using that as an opportunity to make a big kind of, story about banning immigration so that he can serve some meat to his political base.
Exactly. I think it's more show, and people. That's what the confusing part in it, because most of the stuff he is blocking is already happening because of the situation, not because of the law. I think it was more to energize the base and make them happy that they were using the word suspension of immigration, but it's not really that the case. And people I was getting a little bit worried because it was confusing on the part for people who are here fighting an adjustment of status. The issue is, can they file or not? That's the part which is kind of what will USCIS do? Will they just reject it and then we'll have to fight in court, or will there some lawsuit coming up from maybe some organization like maybe American Immigration Lawyers or ACLU that will fight this? So we have to wait and see. But since it is temporary, by the time you fight it,
no, actually, I don't think that it's. So if you look at the scope of the executive order, it does not impact the adjustment of status. So anyone that has a pending adjustment of status or is filing an I-140 is not impacted by the present executive order as Trump has written it. Now, if you read the executive order, what it will say is the first couple pages will kind of give a big, dissertation or kind of discussion about how, foreign workers are impacting U.S. jobs. This is just political. If you look at the actual provision of the executive order, it says specifically that it's only impacting entry. Entry doesn't. Yeah, so that's not going to hurt anyone that's doing an adjustment of status. It will impact somebody who is trying to get an immigrant visa, an IV at a foreign embassy. But someone that is in the U.S. that is eligible to do adjustment of status or has already filed his or her adjustment of status is not impacted by the executive order.
Yeah. In fact, everybody's understanding it the other way around. So I was reading some articles, and that's what was confusing me, because I was reading the executive order. It was not saying what they were publishing on the news. And some of them will say, okay, you can process your case to National Visa Center and go to the consulate when I am not seeing that. I'm seeing it the other way around. If you're inside, you might be able to get something, but if you're outside, you probably will not get anything, although the exception are people, those exceptions that are listed. So at the end of the day, it's just a paper tiger, right? So,
it is a paper tiger. It's absolutely a paper tiger. And you know what I thought was interesting about the executive order is that there's an exception for individuals who are getting an immigrant visa from an EB5 investor visa.
Yeah.
And I think that is also part of the Kushner influence, because if you know anything about the Kushner influence, that is the son-in-law of President Trump.
And he lives on EB5, right?
His family is selling, EB5 deals in China and elsewhere. So it seems like there's some self-dealing there as well.
Of course, always, right?
But I think the important thing for listeners to understand is if you're in the United States, you're not impacted. And I think it's a great reminder to everybody that is interested or in a situation where, they are earning a high salary, particularly individuals who are earning a high salary, to contact us and let us have a self-petition assessment made. I think that individuals with high salary in almost every situation will have self-petition options. You do not want to depend on your employer, or you don't know what's going to happen with the employment situations. And this is a very, very important opportunity for you, a wake-up call to, deal with your adjustment of your immigration situation. So if you have a high salary, it's very, very important.
I want you to elaborate a little bit here, Sharif, because you're just saying high salary. Let's go back a little bit and explain the EB1, how you work on the EB1 that you think that someone can get an EB1 because he has high salary, or he works in a field which is of national interest now. Tell us.
I think, first of all, I would expand it beyond EB1 and include national interest waiver because of the current economic situation. Under the present economic situation where right now you are living in the United States, for example, let's take an individual that has an H-1B with a pre-existing I-140. That is employer-sponsored I-140. So let's take a typical case. And this individual is a software engineer. They have their I-140 approved, let's say 2014. And they are, living wonderfully. They're making a salary of, let's say, $190,000. They're living a beautiful life. The kids are in dance and ballet and soccer, and, maybe the spouse is also earning money. This person needs to understand that they do not want to just live life and wait for something to take place and happen. You need to take the situation into your own hands. And there are two very, very powerful tools within the U.S. immigration system to take matters into your own hands. That is the EB2, second category, national interest waiver. And the other is the EB1A, first category, extraordinary ability. You see, these two options exist so that an individual can apply without an employer. It is deemed that they are so, talented and able to contribute to U.S. interests that they do not require an employer. The reason why I am saying somebody with a high salary is when I look at the, hundreds and hundreds of cases that we've done, if there's one factor for individuals who get approved, it's not that they have publications, it's not that they have media, it's not that they have any other factor, awards. It is always that they command a high salary. Anyone that has a high salary tends to get approved. This is true across the board. And the reason I would say that is true is because a high salary is the most objective measure of one's ability and skill within our capitalist society. So, whether you're a capitalist or a socialist, I don't really care. It doesn't matter what I am. What it matters is what is going to get you approved so that you get a green card or that you are secure in your immigration status. So let me tell you why this is important. If you are that individual that in 2014 you had your I-140 approved and you're working under an employment-sponsored visa, you're working with your employer, and let's say this employer says, you know what, we are doing layoffs, and this individual, God forbid, is laid off. Now he has to look for, or she has to look for a new employer. And, with the H-1B, you have 60 days to find new employment, right? So now that you find new employment, if that new employment is in a slightly different work capacity, if the new employer is going to have to refile your I-140 for you to eventually adjust status, if you had done what I'm telling people to do, what we've been advocating people to do for such a long time, and that is self-petition, then you have, let's say, an approved national interest waiver, second category. That is personal to you. It goes with you wherever you go. Wherever you go, you'll be able to have your national interest waiver. You could even take a job in Singapore. You could take a job in India. You could take a job in Canada. And whenever your date becomes current on your second category national interest waiver, or if you're from a country other than India, for the most part, you could, have a very clear path towards a green card, you will be able to make an adjustment of status without depending on a subsequent employer.
And this
that
is
a very powerful tool.
You. Yeah, exactly. And we keep telling that, and people look at it from a perspective, okay, the cost will come from me, etc. But what they don't realize is that once you have it, it belongs to you. You take it anywhere. If you file a normal case, especially if you're born in India, you're stuck. Once you move to another company, they have to start over. Except the priority date, there's nothing really else they can take for you. And I really see this as it's an independence, right? It gives you independence, so it's important that people understand that. Now, the best part is that if we get you on national interest waiver and at a later stage you qualify for EB1 too, you can jump on EB1 and use that priority date, etc. So it is something major, especially right now. Now, Sharif, you were talking about salary, but one thing which was mentioned actually in that executive order are those exceptions for people working in medical, in science, in research of virus, etc. Tell us a little bit about, I know we got a few calls lately about people who are working directly with this. How can we basically tell us a little bit how we can really approach this, that people who are in that field now becomes, maybe they were not so much a national interest waiver or an EB1, now they become an EB1A.
Yeah, I absolutely will. But if you don't mind, you mentioned something that was very, very interesting, which is that some people are worried about the cost because this is a self-petition. What is the cost of inaction? I think that's the cost you need to measure. That's what we call, in economics, they call it opportunity cost. What is the opportunity cost of relying solely upon an employer and not being able to accept opportunities that will come in the future? Because my particular, prevailing wage says that I can only make this much and I can't change jobs and I can't change situation because my I-140 was filed in this way. All of those stories which we hear every single day prevent people from being able to live at least semi-normal lives, where they otherwise would be able to if they have the, self-petition completed is a very, very big deal and has really economic impact. Now, regarding the kind of exceptions that were in the executive order and people's ability to take advantage of the need that presently exists in the United States around the COVID-19 coronavirus, pandemic, is that not only are direct healthcare workers badly needed from the national interest perspective, but I would say people that support the efforts of those individuals. And there's twofold. One, we see a very, very big push in the medical technology. So, for example, right now, if somebody has a child and that child has a regular, let's say flu or just a regular illness, and they want to see the doctor, we're now doing telemedicine and video medicine. So who do you think is the ingenuity and brains behind all of these kind of telemedicine and all of these endeavors? It is always the IT backup that is developing and providing the tools for these doctors to be able to provide that. So we not only do we think about who's directly working within these various fields, but we think about who is supporting, who's providing the technological infrastructure to allow these methods to be utilized. The other enormous area where we're seeing a lot of support and a lot of approval is the clinical trial, automation, and cloud clinical trial process. This is a huge industry that is off the charts in terms of national interest arguments and policy arguments. So we're seeing definitely those two areas as enormously beneficial. So when we look at a national interest waiver, we're looking at an EB1A, we're always looking at, are you working in an area that is going to naturally benefit the United States? And anyone that is touching healthcare-related technology, not only those who are actually, doctors, and we have plenty of physicians and doctors who are supporting and helping and getting their, paperwork completed, but those who are providing the technology that is supporting the either, and it could go beyond the healthcare. It could go, for example, people that are providing. We've done a lot in the past with education. So if you're creating, like learning applications, like Khan Academy type distance education tools, that means kids can do their homework, from home. Allowing people to work from home. Again, cloud, just generally, cloud enterprise data solutions are enormous right now. So it's very wide range fields that allow people to take advantage of the self-petition options.
Exactly, and Sharif, this is the thing. I wanted people to, for those who are listening now, who join in, because we changed the time today, and I think we have different listeners. This is Attorney Chaparrali with Attorney Sharif Silmi. We are from the Chaparrali Law Group, and we are talking about, of course, the 60 days quote-unquote suspension, and we are also talking about one aspect of immigration, which we call the extraordinary abilities, EB1A and national interest waiver. The reason we are talking about that, it is more important than ever now, because the situation is as such. Many people are not sure about how their jobs will go, but at the same time, they are really of high caliber in terms of the salary they have, and plus they are working in a field which is of national interest, and we are talking about that. And again, if you need help, call us 510-742-5887, 510-742-5887. Even we're under shelter, like Sharif is saying, we are kind of frontliners now because of the people's situation. We have to go. We work from home, but we have to go to the post office, drop it, etc., etc. So it is important, but stay safe, stay home. We recommend that. And we were talking about, of course, that 60-day suspension executive order, which is, both me and Sharif believes, is kind of a paper tiger. It's not really so substantial. Luckily, it's good for us. But if you need help, 510-742-5887, the website to check, attorneyonair.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is where we put updates. So, Sharif, tell us lately what new things you're seeing in terms of the EB1A, although we know there's still a backlog for India, but still better than the EB2, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's much better than the EB2. The priority date, actually, there's some confusion sometimes about the priority date and how to find the correct date of final, application, because, there's a State Department bulletin that we look to for the final action dates. And within that State Department bulletin, if you read it very, very carefully, you will find that there is a link to the USCIS website, which provides the dates for adjustment of status. So those of our friends and community that are in the United States and you're physically present in the United States, you don't necessarily want to go with the State Department dates, because while they are aligned right now, I can tell you last month, in the month of March, they were not. The month of March, March 2020, if you looked at the final action date for adjustment of status, right, the date was March 2017 under EB1. And for the visa bulletin from the State Department, the date was 2015. So there was a 2-year difference between the visa bulletin for Department of State and the adjustment of status final date from USCIS. And I anticipate that this will change radically, and this will actually be a huge opportunity for people to definitely, hurry up and file their EB1A or NIW within the next 3-4 months, because I think what's going to happen is the 2-month pause in immigrant visa issuing in embassies abroad will actually help the adjustment of status calendar with respect to priority date. So, that is something that we're going to keep our eye on.
Thinking about, right? It's true, because now that we are not going to process the National Visa Center, we are talking about many, many cases that will stay in the basket, which might move both EB2 and EB1, right?
Exactly. And again, you have to understand that they are kept separately. There's a separate calendar or bulletin for the adjustment of status versus the final issuance of visas. So again, this is very important for people to contact us and, become aware of all of these, complex matters, because so many people try to rely on forums and do it themselves, and they end up really screwing themselves. I mean, I've seen so many stories where people, it's sad. I hate to laugh about it, because they've ruined their lives because they didn't want to spend $100 on a consultation. And, it's sad. It really is sad, especially people are making $200,000-$300,000 a year, and they're depending on free advice from, forums that are actually misinforming.
This is the biggest problem,
and different. Every case is very unique and different.
Yeah.
I sincerely believe that.
And you made a very good point on the forums right now. I always tell people forums are nice to get general information what people are saying, but don't rely on them on law. I just was reading a forum right now, which is read probably by most of the students in the U.S. I'm not going to mention the name, but most of the information he was giving is totally inaccurate. And plus, he's not even a lawyer. He's a student himself. And people will tend to listen to that, and they end up by getting more confused and basically losing opportunities. So I call on people, if you need help, give us a call. We'll do a consultation. 510-742-5887, 510-742-5887. The website is attorneyonair.com, attorneyonair.com. Sharif, tell us a little bit about the situation of national interest waiver more now. We know that those two are kind of related on the fact of being of national interest and important to the United States. But one of the things people think, okay, I'm from India, I don't want to file a national interest waiver because then EB2. But national interest waiver can be a savior many times. One of the things you mentioned is the job, but also it is something that allows you to get a free mind. You can even go and wait in Canada, Australia, you can wait in India, and then come back later, right?
Absolutely, exactly. And it does allow you, like you said, freedom and free mind, and not to be dependent on an employer sponsor, one of the beauties of the national interest waiver is it does not require a job offer. So upon the entry of an individual or adjustment of status, you don't need to prove that you have a specific job offer. What you need to demonstrate in order to have a national interest waiver approved is either you have a master's degree or its equivalents or higher, or that you meet what's called the E21 Extraordinary Ability Criteria. So we don't talk about this much, so I think we could go into this. So if you do not have a master's degree, do not be discouraged. You will still be able to be eligible for a national interest waiver through meeting what is called the E21 criteria. The E21 criteria say so you need to meet 3 of the criteria. There's always 3. I don't know why that's the case, but that's the number. So the first, and easiest of the criteria is that you have a bachelor's degree or its equivalent. So as long as you have a bachelor's degree, that is one. Another criteria is that you have worked for 10 years within your industry. So if you have 10 years experience, that would be plus a bachelor's degree, you're basically in at that point. Because the other criteria, you could find argument to make, that you perform in a critical role for an organization that has a distinguished reputation, you have original contributions to your field, that you have professional memberships, and you could join professional memberships if you need to. So the E21 criteria for national interest waiver are not as heavily scrutinized as like what's called E11 criteria under EB1A. The E21 national interest waiver criteria are pretty easy to meet. So whether you have a master's degree or not, you can still apply for national interest waiver. That's the first thing. Now, once you've either established that you have a master's...
Let's kind of elaborate on that before you move on to, because a lot of people always thought it's either a bachelor plus 5 years or a master's degree. So you're saying here, if someone has, even with no bachelor, you can still apply on the E21 based on experience?
Technically, yes, that's true. Yes. Yeah, you would have to meet you'd have to meet a minimum of 3 criteria under E21. One of those criteria is bachelor's degree. So I would say, I personally have not seen one without a bachelor's degree, because, once you get through the E21 criteria, there's still a whole other process you have to go through, and it's rather difficult to do so if you don't at least have unless you're just like a phenomenal entrepreneur, for example, then that could be one scenario. But basically, you have the bachelor's degree, you have the experience, and you get through that first hurdle of the national interest waiver. Alternatively, you have a master's degree. Now, some people, especially if you've come, for example, in a lot of Asian or African countries, you could get a professional degree like in dentistry. That is not usually the same as getting a master's degree. So you have to really, do the assessment of what your equivalency of your degree is and have that, assessment made. Evaluation, yes. Yeah. So once you've established either the E21 or the master's degree, then you can move on to the next phase of the national interest waiver.
That's very, very interesting, because I always relied direct on bachelor plus 5 years and masters. And also, there's a situation where people could upgrade based on 10 years of experience. So we want to put that in simple terms. So if you want to go ahead and get something which belongs to you, is not dependent on your employer, plus has nothing to do with the employer except maybe your experience, you should take that route, because the reason for that is freedom. It's a freedom which is really unique, because if you don't have that freedom, that means anytime you leave or you get terminated, that means it's a start over, especially if you're born in India. And because of that, we highly recommend people to look at this in the national interest waiver. We get a lot of calls. people who want to do national interest waiver who don't qualify, but people who qualify, they don't want to even take the chance until I talk to them sometimes and asking them few questions, and I find out they do qualify, and they're still basically begging their employer to file a green card for them. And those people could have already had a green card by that time, and luckily
and
some
the value
of them
is much higher, as we mentioned. Attorney Shah, how about maybe if you can clarify this for a lot of our listeners. Sometimes one objection I hear quite often is that folks are worried that if they apply for a national interest waiver or an EB1A and for whatever reason it's not approved, in the event that it's denied, will that impact their existing I-140 that's either an EB3 or an EB2?
Definitely not, because those are independent, and I get that question all the time. When you're filing for an EB2 under national interest waiver, while you're filing under the labor certification, none of them get impacted by the other. The only time it will get impacted if there's some kind of fraud committed. So if you use one, you committed fraud and you lie and misrepresented on one, of course it will affect everything you have. But otherwise, as long as it's clean, it's actually a good thing to have both, because then you can just pick and choose whichever comes first, right? So
exactly. So there's no downside in applying for a national interest waiver. There's no negative impact.
Definitely
the only
not.
thing you could do is gain something. You cannot lose anything.
Exactly. In fact, it's to your advantage to file instead of not filing. Like I said, the only thing that becomes an issue if people pretty much kind of lying on the application.
Yeah, and of course we'll not, entertain those things. So the interesting point, if you kind of come to the logical conclusion of this, is that if you do not apply, if you do not take advantage of the self-petition option that exists right now, you are in that worst-case scenario. So let's say you apply. You call us, we do your national interest waiver. We work hard, we get it done, we get the evidence, we submit it, we file a beautiful brief that's going to really explain and give a very strong story to, the reason why you need to be approved. And this is a lot of policy arguments, a lot of, detailed analysis, a lot of really, crafting of your petition, and we're going to do an amazing job with it. That is guaranteed. Most likely you're going to get approved, and your life is going to be much better. Let's say, God forbid, you have the worst adjudicating officer in the world, and she denied your case. Guess what? You're in the same situation as you are in right now by sitting there not doing anything about your situation. So you are, in fact, by doing nothing, you are already in the worst-case scenario. Doing something, at least you give yourself a very good opportunity and shot. So, we can only give the advice. It's up to you to take advantage of that advice, and I hope that people out there, do for their own sake. And, we're obviously here to help and really feel strongly about everyone and their situation. And we have so much empathy and concern and caring for everyone out there. So we hope that everybody does take advantage and, does what needs to be done. Attorney Shaw, I have to excuse myself because, the clients are, really in need of our support and help. But I, want to just thank you and thank everybody out there and hope that, everybody stays safe and is doing well and reaches out and we can, help them and do our best to make sure that we put them in a better situation than they're in right now.
Thank you so much, and happy Ramadan, Sharif. Thank you so much, Sharif. So, ladies and gentlemen, we had Attorney Sharif with me, and I have a few minutes now. I'm going to talk a little bit about, of course, we talk about the situation that's happening, the 60-day kind of quote-unquote suspension. And Sharif really brought it home right now when he said, it's a paper tiger, because it doesn't really make sense what has been written, but it just pleases a lot of people. But the good thing is that what he brought, I didn't really thought about that, is the fact that they cannot change those law to executive orders. So ultimately most people inside the U.S. are not affected, but people outside, of course, jurisdiction issue doesn't apply. So it's actually not that bad. So let's wait and see in 30 days if we'll come up with something worse. So let's kind of hope that things will not get worse. That is our hope. But having said that, if you're on H-1B, O-1, etc., TN, and everything, if you're already inside the United States, you're fine to stay. As long as you have your valid visa, and if you're filing for an immigrant visa, which is a green card, you pretty much inside you should be able to do that, which is adjustment of status. So if you need help, give us a call, 510-742-5887. Now, before I close, I wanted to talk a little bit about the second area of practice, which is debt settlement. This is coming really in force. We're getting a lot of calls because a lot of people now are finding themselves in difficulties, and they can't afford to pay their loans, they cannot afford to pay their credit cards, they cannot afford to pay their second mortgage, they cannot afford to pay a lot of things, and at the same time they don't really want to have this hanging on their head that later when things get better they come back and pretty much kind of file a lawsuit against them. So we can help you get out of it, or even if the lawsuit that is filed, and we can negotiate for you and bring it whatever you owe to a fraction of its value. And here we're talking about unsecured loans, for example, credit cards, second mortgages, lawsuit that was won against you. Anything that doesn't hold to an asset is called an unsecured loan. For example, a mortgage is a secured loan. That's different because if you don't pay, they take your house away. A car loan is a secured loan because if you don't pay, you get your car repoed. So it is a lot of things that we can do to help you on both aspects, including immigration, but at the same time on when it comes to what we call I'm just lost my thought here. But we can help you. We can help you on all the angles. If you need help, give us a call, 510-742-5887, 510-742-5887. I don't know how much time I'm left, Michael. Today we started the show late today, so I apologize for that. But again, probably we're having new listenership. Usually our shows are at 10 o'clock, 10 to 11 on Thursdays. So tune in all the time. And also I wanted to tell you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Shah-Pirali-Law, SHAPERALLYLAW.com. Not .com, but Shah-Pirali-Law, because it's for the YouTube channel. It is important that you subscribe there because if you look at my website, I didn't write anything for some time now. It's a lot easier actually to just record a video and put it out there because people tend to watch stuff rather than just reading them. So not only that, it takes some time on me to do that. And plus, even we are in the shelter situation, we still have a lot of work, especially we see clients panicking. Today I got a lot of calls, people asking me what happens to me now, what happens to me, and I'm getting texts right and left, and it got me a little bit overwhelmed. So I apologize those I have not answered yet. But again, this is the situation. Things are going to get worse before it gets better. We are talking about years for the economy to come back, but at the same time, we might really see something good coming out of this, although it's a really sad situation. So we need to be ready for all this. And if you need help, again, number 510-742-5887. And earlier I had Attorney Sharif with me where we were discussing about the EB1A and National Interest Waiver, which are two important things. So I want you to look into that because you don't want to be dependent forever. Plus, being dependent is also dangerous on the fact that you are right now a lot of companies is actually a lot of companies are struggling, right? And we see that they're giving loans, supposedly stimulus package, but most businesses are not getting it. So it is a different time. The world is changing. Everything is changing. So I want you to hang in there. Stay home as much as you can. Don't go out just for fun, for no reason, because it's not going to work. This thing needs to be contained, and less hosts it gets, better it is. I don't know if you saw the movie Aliens back in the days. This is how it works. It has to have a host, and if you give them an opportunity to have a host, it will hurt you and hurt others. So stay home, stay safe, and I wanted to thank Michael today for being with me on the board. Really appreciate it for coming for me, and next week the show will start at 10 o'clock on Thursday, and anything I'm telling you today is my opinion. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions. I wanted to thank Radio Zindagi. I wanted to say a special hi to all my friends listening abroad, especially in Mauritius and in India and Pakistan and even in the Middle East. So I wanted to say thank you to them, and Ramadan Mubarak to all. And this year is going to have a lot of meaning down, because hunger is striking a lot of people. We are talking about almost 250 million people who are going to go through starvation. So please use your zakat, use your donations wisely, help as much as you can, and stay safe. God bless you all. And we'll be back next week, same time. And today was April 23rd, April 23rd, 2020, and we start at 10 a.m. usually on Thursday, 10 a.m. Today we just delayed a little bit, but 10 a.m. So tune in next week also, same time, not same time, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We will be talking about immigration and other related issues. Thank you so much. Good luck. Take care. Bye-bye.